Yeah, pretty lonely to be honest. For me, the whole race. Yeah, a little bit tough, but at the other hand, though, how the whole weekend was, I guess.
Listen, guys, Barcelona didn't just give us a race weekend, it gave us a reality check that nobody in the paddock wanted to talk about. Max Verstappen, the man who dominated this sport for 4 straight years, finished 4th and called it a lonely race. Meanwhile, Lewis Hamilton, 41 years old, won his first Ferrari race like he never left. So today we're asking the real question, is Max slowly becoming what Lewis was in Ferrari last year? And honestly, the answer might shock you more than you think. Let's break this down, but before, if you want more updates and news on Max, then hit that like button and subscribe for more breakdowns. The Barcelona incident when the red mist took over. So let's go back to the 2025 Spanish Grand Prix, because this is where everything started making sense. Max clashed with George Russell at turn 1, got told by his engineer Lambiase to give the position back, and instead of doing that calmly, he drove straight into Russell at turn 5, on purpose. That earned him a 10-second penalty and dropped him from 5th all the way to 10th. Now, here's what hurts Max. Finished the entire 2025 season just 2 points behind Lando Norris. 2 points. And he threw away at least 9 points in Barcelona alone because he lost his temper. He admitted it himself, saying everything went red and that it was a mistake. But admitting it after the season is very different from controlling it in the moment. And that difference right there is what's slowly becoming Max's biggest problem. How Max should actually behave. The Lewis blueprint. Now, this is where it gets really interesting because Lewis Hamilton built a career on something Max hasn't fully learned yet: emotional control under pressure. Think about every time Lewis was in a bad car, in a difficult situation, getting unfair calls, he kept his head down, he kept pushing, and he let the results do the talking. Max, on the other hand, when things go wrong, the frustration comes out immediately, and sometimes it costs him. The Barcelona crash is the perfect example of that. So what should Max actually do? Simple channel the anger into lap times, not into other people's cars. Stop reacting to decisions in real time and start trusting the bigger picture. Lewis didn't become a 7-time champion by cracking under pressure. He became one by making pressure work for him. Because the best version of Max is the one who is ice cold even when he's furious on the inside. The lonely race confession, Max's honest reality. And that brings us to something Max said after Barcelona 2026 that honestly gave me chills. He said, and I quote, "For me, it was actually quite a lonely race and just too slow. Every stint, you just lose a bit of time on every tire. None of them really worked." That's not just a race report. That's a driver telling you his car is leaving him stranded out there with nothing to fight with. When Max says it felt lonely, what he's really saying is that he had no weapon in his hands. He was out there doing everything right, and it still wasn't enough. And when a driver of Max's level starts using the word lonely to describe a race, that tells you everything about where Red Bull actually stands right now. That is genuinely difficult to process for someone who spent 4 years being completely untouchable. How involved is Max in building the car and why that matters? Now, here's something people don't talk about enough. How much influence does Max actually have over the RB22's development? Because this is exactly where Lewis Hamilton spent his 2025 season with Ferrari, trying to shape the car around his driving style and struggling when the engineers took a different direction. Max has always been vocal with his feedback. He's known for being extremely precise and detailed in how he describes what the car is doing underneath him. But the real question is whether Red Bull is actually listening and acting on that feedback fast enough, because right now the RB22 is fundamentally struggling with tire management and balance issues that Max keeps highlighting weekend after weekend. At some point, if the engineers keep missing the brief, even the most patient driver in the world runs out of faith in the process. If the car doesn't match the driver's needs, even the best driver in the world starts looking average. Isack Hadjar's warning. A rookie just twisted the knife. And if Max's situation wasn't already uncomfortable enough, his own teammate Isack Hadjar just twisted the knife. In qualifying at Barcelona, Hadjar was just 0.056 seconds behind Max, same car, same team, same conditions. After the session, Hadjar said he was disgusted because a small mistake at turn 1 cost him a front row position, meaning he genuinely believed he should have been ahead of Max. That's not some rival talking. That's your own garage calling you out. And when a rookie in his first Red Bull season can confidently say, "I should have been in front of you," that tells you everything about where Max stands right now. How soon can Red Bull actually fix this? So the big question, how long before Red Bull gets back to the front? Red Bull brought upgrades at Monza in 2025 that made the car more competitive, and Max himself went on a brilliant recovery run at the end of the season, closing a 104-point gap down to just 2 points. So the ability is definitely there, but the pattern we're seeing suggests that Red Bull is reactive rather than proactive with their development. They fix things after the problem becomes too big to ignore. McLaren, on the other hand, are constantly pushing forward and never waiting for problems to find them. So realistically, if Red Bull finds the right development direction through the 2026 regulations, Max could be back fighting at the front. But right now, every race weekend that passes without a proper answer is another race weekend gifted to McLaren. But if they get the new car wrong, this lonely race feeling could stretch into a very long and painful season. What happens next? So let's bring it all together. Barcelona showed us a Max who is frustrated, isolated in a slow car, losing points through emotional mistakes, and now getting challenged by rookies. The lonely race quote wasn't just words, it was a confession. And the Lewis comparison isn't an insult, it's actually a warning. Lewis went through exactly this with Ferrari, and it eventually pushed him out of the team. Max still has time, the talent is undeniable, but the car and the mindset both need to catch up. My personal opinion, Max is one strong regulation cycle away from being completely dominant again, but only if Red Bull stops reacting and starts leading, because the clock is ticking and the competition is not waiting. Now, here's the question I want to leave with you. If Red Bull doesn't fix this car by the second half of 2026, do you think Max starts seriously thinking about walking away early? Drop your answer in the comments. I genuinely want to know what you think.